Second-hand device market. What was once something of a wild west is now a considerable market force. But for the companies that have merged in this space, new challenges are arising. Constantly evolving industry dynamics have brought new channels, regulations, and manufacturer incentives, making it increasingly difficult to keep up with real-time market trends. To avoid getting left behind, you'll need a data-driven strategy that can react to developing trends and be effectively conveyed to your stakeholders. At CCS Insight, we've created a tool to help you achieve just that. Introducing Pulse, your guide through the ever-evolving second-hand market. Pulse takes real-time data from companies across the supply chain, providing you with quarterly updated market insight delivered in an easy-to-use interactive dashboard. Use these regular updates to say goodbye to guesswork and hello to data-driven decisions. What's more is that you can keep your whole team up to speed as we provide access to Pulse for your entire organization at no additional cost. So, if you want to stay informed and stay ahead of the competition, get in touch and book a demo now.
There's a new destination for gaming. All the gear, all the games, and it's open to every player on any network. Search EE Game Store.
private mobile network landscape is lucrative and evolving fast. New go-to-market strategies, a maturing solutions ecosystem, and niche adoption drivers are making it harder and harder to keep up with real-time trends. To avoid getting left behind in a market that's going from strength to strength, you'll need a data-driven strategy that can react to the market's rapid evolution. At CCS Insight, we've created a tool to help you achieve just that. Introducing Pulse, your guide through the dynamic private mobile network market. Presented in an easy-to-use and interactive dashboard, Pulse provides you with quarterly updates of market insight, ranging from high-level industry KPIs to granular data on deployment models, industries, regions, and much more. Use these regular updates to say goodbye to guesswork and hello to data-driven decisions. You can keep your whole team up to speed as we provide access to Pulse for your entire organization at no additional cost, making it easy for you to report to stakeholders and refine your strategy. So if you want to stay informed and stay ahead of the competition, get in touch and book a demo now.
What does it mean to have guts? In Korean, they call it tuhan. It sort of means trying again and again and again.
It's the guts to get you hyped.
Or to turn nothing into something.
It's never giving up until you get the shot. Yeah, that's it.
It's about being you, no matter what they say.
Or cutting out all that noise and going again.
So what does it really mean to have guts? Everything.
Every day, Qualcomm is transforming the way we work, live, and communicate, pushing the limits of technologies like artificial intelligence to help us stay more intelligently connected. Over the last 10 years, Qualcomm has been advancing on-device AI, recreating legendary cinematic effects from professional-grade lenses. For movie-quality images that will blow you away.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap.
Keeping up with these quickly evolving technologies can seem daunting, but that's the power of AI. You don't need to understand it. It understands you. Welcome to the edge of possible.
Hi, I'm Simon Bryant. I lead research at CCS Insight. I'm delighted to welcome you to the third and final day of this year's predictions event. Hopefully you've been following from the start and heard some of the predictions we've shared so far. We'd love to hear which ones stood out for you, so please share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag CCSPredicts. Also, we'll be sending a link to everyone who registered, so you can download a booklet from the complete set of predictions. Day one of the event looked at personalized experiences, and day two focused on intelligence, sustainability, and connectivity. Today we have another great session in store. You'll hear from our enterprise research and network infrastructure teams about collaborative convergence. We'll be looking at the digital economy and workplace, smart industry, the impact of technology on society, including sustainability, data governance, and online trust. Bola Rotibi, our Chief of Enterprise Research, and James Sanders, who leads our research in cloud and AI, will kick things off by sharing insights and predictions focused on convergence in the digital enterprise. After that, we will have two panels consecutively. The first will look at digital workplace transformation, including a focus on digital skill sets, the rise of AI, and virtual workplaces. The second panel will explore the future of connectivity, compute and cloud, looking at network architectures, technology trends, mass-scale internet, and the role of quantum computing. We'll then have an interview with John Smee, Senior Vice President of Engineering and Head of Wireless Research at Qualcomm, about the role and importance of open standards in driving innovation. The final presentation today will focus on private mobile networks. Luke Pierce and Richard Webb will share research from our Private Networks Market Research Tracking Pulse program related to technologies, commercial models, uses, and industry sectors. We think you're going to find the next hour an engaging mix of commentary, data, and opinion. Now over to my colleague Bola to get things started by sharing some of the insights from our enterprise research.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome everyone as we discuss convergence in the digital enterprise. My name is Bola Rotibi, and I'm the Chief of Enterprise Research here at CCS Insight. I'm joined today by my colleague James Sanders, who leads our cloud and infrastructure research. Together, we will outline the changes that we have seen take hold over the last couple of years and which point to greater maturity in approach for organisations embracing digital operation. Every year, the team and I run a wide range of surveys that map out the IT investment priorities and technology adoption strategies of senior business and operational leaders and employees from across the market landscape. The results reveal the growing maturity of digital operations along with a more pragmatic approach to the foundations for optimal execution. I would not be exaggerating by saying that our data shows that many business and IT leaders understand the opportunities presented by cloud computing. We are seeing high interest and wide use of digital technologies such as cloud computing services from multiple providers. In embracing digital technologies, applications and devices, along with communication advances such as 5G, the needs of the digital enterprise greatly mirror those of other consumers of digital solutions and operations. Their converging requirements give rise to a cornucopia of expectations to be met, from personalised engagements, great attention to security management, improved network connectivity, through to intuitive collaboration and communication. All want automation that makes sense without compromising on performance and with better cost control. Businesses, in particular, see customer and employee experience as two sides of the same improved engagement coin, making them both leading application priorities for the next 12 to 18 months. But many organisations across their operations now recognise that the rush to blindly embrace past technology choices has not always served them well, leaving many wary of overhyped capabilities and outcomes. They have been burnt in their use of technology, seen outcomes that don't meet the marketed promises, and despite hearing the push for simplification, are still mired in orders of complexity in their application, tools, and infrastructure stacks. That's not to say that there aren't still high levels of interest in technologies that capture the digital zeitgeist of the day. Our Day 2 panel on artificial intelligence highlighted the immense level of interest along with the known challenges that underpin this technology. However, the fervour around artificial intelligence this year has centred around large language models, the underpinning technology of generative artificial intelligence like OpenAI's ChatGPT, allowing natural language conversational commands and queries to create, investigate, and deliver relevant content and insights. The impressive results of large language models has led to prognostication about the development of artificial general intelligence, a type of AI that can accomplish any intellectual task that humans can perform through reasoning and inference. This leads to our prediction that large language models will have an upper growth limit and are not the pathway to artificial general intelligence. Further convergence across the market landscape that is shared by enterprises, consumers, and suppliers alike is the view that technology and renewable energy resources are imperative for sustainability. Modernised infrastructure, application systems, and IT operation processes were all named in our surveys as critical technology investment for achieving sustainable goals. There is clear recognition of the value served by hybrid and remote work, as well as advanced communication networks and devices. What will be topping everyone's list of priorities would be the ability to intelligently measure their environmental impact and to demonstrate meaningful and long-lasting sustainability and purpose that is compliant with key national and international regulations.
Thank you, Bola. As enterprises take a hard look at the environmental impact of their workloads, as well as the situational need for increased data processing at the edge. This balance of priorities leads us to our next prediction. ARM and RISC-V will together serve a fifth of enterprise workloads by 2028. Many of these alternatives are already in the market, with AWS Graviton and Ampere-1 enterprise-grade CPUs using the familiar ARM instruction set found more commonly in consumer devices like smartphones and tablets. Similarly, startups including Ventana and Sci5 are designing increasingly high-power designs for the new royalty-free RISC-V instruction set for edge and server-class workloads. In China, Alibaba Cloud is pursuing the adoption of RISC-V with high-power server CPUs intended to displace options from Intel and AMD. While cloud platforms are increasingly the preferred destination for enterprise workloads, concerns about the economy are prompting deeper investigation into cloud spending. These concerns bring us to our next prediction. Recession fears will push workloads from the cloud to on-premises through 2024. Given the on-demand model of cloud platforms, steady-state applications that have predictable requirements are good candidates for repatriating workloads onto on-premises hardware. Organizations with existing hybrid cloud deployments will be more likely than those all in on one or more hyperscale cloud platform to claw back some workloads, perhaps as part of a hardware cycle refresh.
Hello, I'm Richard Webb, and I'm Director of Network Infrastructure with CCS Insight. So our next panel focuses on the enterprise and trends within the digital workplace. I'm joined by some of my analyst colleagues, Bola Rotibi, James Sanders, and Maria Bell.
Hi.
Hi. So we're going to start looking at the trends that are shaping this landscape. I'm going to come to you, Bola, first of all, as Chief of our Enterprise Research. Give us a quick overview of what's going on in enterprise. What's shaping this?
What's shaping it? So lots and lots. And I don't really want to steal my team's thunder because I'm sure they'll go into specifics later. But I would definitely say that one of the big things is that modernization and transformation is really still the game, for most for all organizations as they think about what they're looking to transition to the digital enterprise of the future. So what do we mean by that? If we look at the sort of technologies that are sort of being adopted and taken on board. So we've already talked a lot around artificial intelligence and analytics, because a lot of people want not just predictive, they want greater levels of automation and sort of personalization, so all of that's tied into sort of the AI concept. The other side is cloud, cloud services, and we're seeing much more around multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. A lot of our surveys, when we actually sort of conduct them over the year, cloud services is really high up there. Also high up there in terms of the trends is security. Security is it's a top priority, always has been, continues to be, because the bad actors, they just keep getting cover, and organizations need to kind of plug in those vulnerabilities, especially around data privacy and and data sovereignty is another area, as we've seen, as we look into some of the kind of regulations that have come out, the EU's GDPR, general data protection regulations. So so those are kind of things in terms of the technologies. So if we think about the skill sets, one of the things that's really sort of big is talent. Everyone's looking at, we've got a talent deficit. Everyone's looking for new sort of people to help them with some of these new technologies. And I think that's continuing, and it will continue, and we've seen that over time. But what I do think is going to be interesting is that actually organizations are looking at how they engage their workforce more, how they get more of their workforce moving around and filling in some of those talent gaps, because it's less about understanding the technology. Obviously it's important, but it's also about thinking, problem solving, different sets of skill sets, which I think is going to be really key. So those are the kind of little trends that we are seeing. Automation, everyone wants greater productivity right across the board, greater efficiency and cost efficiency. So automation is a really big focus, and that ties into both cloud, AI, and skill sets.
Okay, so I'm going to pick you up on cloud and AI, but I'm going to bring in James here. So when we look at that rapid adoption of AI that's really been heralded, coming in from the release of ChatGPT-4, what has that meant for enterprises and what's it meant for the market overall in kind of providing the infrastructure to support that rapid adoption?
The rise of AI this year is really parallel to the rise of NVIDIA this year. The GPU story for AI they're kind of inseparable. And the difficulty of that is there's only so many GPUs that you can pump out per quarter, and the prices for those GPUs are getting higher and higher, and the availability of them in cloud platforms is becoming a little more scarce.
Right.
Just because the demand is immense. So with that, it's interesting to look at, what are the alternatives to NVIDIA GPUs? Bringing up silicon takes years to do.
Right.
The software story is where this is really important because there's already some competitors out there. When you look at Google Cloud, they have TPU. They're on version 5 of the Tensor Processing Unit. AWS has Inferentia and Trainium, which are for inference and training, as the name implies.
Right.
And the thing is with those, you have to get outside of the NVIDIA CUDA software platform.
Okay.
And that is where the difficulty comes in because everyone is really basing things around NVIDIA CUDA. So the challenge is, how do you make this easy for developers to use? And you really can't just rely on, a 10% performance uplift or a 10% cost savings. It really has to be a developer-focused thing. And so that's where the challenge is really going to be. There's just not enough there yet, I think, for mass adoption. But because of the price sensitivity, because of the scarce availability of NVIDIA GPUs at the moment, it looks like there's a real opportunity for the cloud platforms to really create a custom, bespoke, maybe slightly lock-in way. I mean, these are open source platforms fundamentally from a software side that they're working with. But the software maturity for those open source packages isn't 100% there.
Okay. Interesting. I'm going to carry on the AI theme, but I'm going to kind of bring it back to the workplace now. We actually have a prediction about ChatGPT oversight committees becoming commonplace within large enterprises. Bola, what do you think of that? Do enterprises need corporate AI strategies?
Oh, simple answer is yes.
Okay.
But no, I mean, just joking aside, I mean, I think all of these things do need a sort of strategic, plan put in place.
Right.
Because the danger is that corporates at the moment AI is the darling of the industry. Everyone talks about it, and the danger is that organisations go running into it without really fully understanding or appreciating where AI actually can make a difference and whether it should where it can should make a difference. Given also that we know that it's quite expensive. It's no matter how many the suppliers are trying to sort of make it more cost efficient, it's still quite expensive processing to train a model. So I think this is what we're going to kind of see is that organisations will need to see, well, which part of the organisation really needs to access AI and whether that's something that they pay for specifically, because we already start to see the pricing coming in for these things. So that might make make a difference. But like anything in IT world, a strategy and a plan is paramount.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to come to Maria next. So Maria, you've been working on our digital transformation survey work. Specifically regards to AI in terms of skill sets, what are you seeing enterprises really looking for? Are they really understanding what they want in terms of AI from their workforce?
Well, I think, Richard, it's fair to say it's still really, really early days at the moment. And certainly we've seen a recent swathe of announcements of generative AI, especially being embedded in everyday workplace tools, Microsoft's Office, Google's Workspace. And I think as enterprise are looking to increase efficiencies across the business and increase productivity within their workforce, I think we're going to see more generative AI embedded across everyday tools over the next few years. And this is something that we've been interested to look at in this year's Employee Technology Survey. We've really sort of had a look at AI and generative AI. How much is it being used? Where has it been embedded? How are the employees using it? How are the organisations using it across their employees? What are the benefits of those already using it? So we're really excited to see the results of that coming out really, really soon. But for me, it's really about the power of the AI benefits. So it's about harnessing that. And I think you need to harness that in a really considered and a really responsible way. And that's where I see a change in digital skill sets. So for me, it's really about bringing on board prompt engineering skills. And I think it's going to be, in the next few years, as this becomes more deeply entrenched, which I feel it will, I think it's going to be a necessary requirement for organisations looking to maximise the potential that the AI can bring to the company. And actually that's why my prediction is that client engineering skills or client prompt engineering skills will be on all job adverts for knowledge workers by 2025.
Oh, interesting prediction. Okay. So let's talk about another emerging technology area now, Maria, AR and VR, augmented reality, virtual reality. Now, you've also been involved in our survey work in that specific area, and I know that we're just beginning some of our enterprise survey-based projects there. What are you expecting to see in terms of use cases, enterprise adoption? Is it happening, do you think?
Well, that's interesting. I'm so excited to see the results of this survey, and we're currently in field at the moment, so I can't wait to see what those are going to be. But I think we're really looking to test whether VR is able to close the gap, I guess, between in-person experiences at work versus those using the digital online technologies that we're all really familiar with. So it's looking to sort of test that hypothesis. And I think without doubt what I'm seeing already is that there is a broader use case being applied across many different organisations. So what I'm hoping the survey will show us is just what those are, I guess, if that makes sense. And looking at some of the survey work we did last year at CCS Insight, and there is a point, so bear with me on this, was that remote employees, one of the most important things to them was their relationships with their colleagues. Right. So being able to learn effectively with them, being able to collaborate effectively. And of all the employees that we asked, 90% still wanted to retain a level of flexibility about their workplace environment and where they were based from. So what that shows us is that there is an opportunity for VR to become embedded within enterprise. And we also did some survey research last year that showed us that over a quarter of people working in enterprise had already used VR or been in a VR meeting. And about 50% of all the people that we asked said they would be really interested in trying it or using it in the future at work. And of those that had used it, most of them had a really positive experience. So for me, I think there are opportunities, and I think it's about looking at what are the new use cases that we can explore. So I'm waiting for those to come through. How is VR being used? Where is it being used? Who by? And actually, more importantly, what are the benefits that it can bring to organisations? And that's across more everyday environment, across all enterprise, all different sizes, and across all segments. So for me, I'm just really excited, and it's a little bit of watch this space. Okay, it does sound interesting. I heard so much about potential use cases in collaboration, customer care, and again, as you mentioned, that kind of colleague-to-colleague interaction as well. Okay, look forward to hearing more about that when it's become available. So James, I want to turn to you now as our data center and cloud analyst. With the adoption of all these new technologies like AI, AR, VR, and so on, what does that mean in terms of impact on enterprise cloud strategies, in terms of things like economics, in terms of workload prioritization? How does it change things?
The story post-COVID is that cloud capacity is in demand more now than ever because server capacity is in demand more now than ever. Like Maria said, there's a lot of enabling technology that went into letting people work from home that was really rapidly spun up as everyone was kind of navigating the crisis of COVID together. And on the other side of that, there's going to be a lot more enterprise services to consumer because people can't go out. They're relying more on internet connectivity for entertainment. And with that growth of compute need is a growth in cloud resource utilization, and that is coming back to, everyone was a little bit, okay, just swipe the credit card, keep things running. And now with the global economic uncertainty, there's a lot of the hairy eyeball being taken to the cloud bill. And there's certain avenues that you can go through for reducing your cloud spending. And some of that you can do just by configuring things a little bit differently in the cloud platform itself. And some of it looks like it's going to come down to, do you have a steady state workload that is predictable day to day, month to month, year to year, where it makes more sense maybe to deploy that on a server in a co-location facility or in a data center that you control, on hardware that you control. So you're not paying the cloud premium. And that, that idea of repatriating workloads to on-prem systems is where I think a lot of the savings is going to wind up coming really from over the next few years.
Yeah, because it sounds almost counterintuitive, but there's kind of a nuance to that, isn't there? That shows that kind of evolution and sophistication of cloud strategy and how enterprises are evolving their thinking there. Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to wrap up now. Last question to Bola. Given your background as a software engineer, interesting developments within the enterprise space, perhaps regarding coding or some of those kind of areas. What do you see?
Oh gosh, there's quite a lot. I mean, and something I didn't sort of mention earlier, which I think is sort of new kind of skill sets for sort of coding, roles, and I think that's going to be kind of like where people are going to be thinking about going forward. Actually, is what type of coders will we need? What kind of developers? I mean, how much will they need to do? So, and that's been brought up by things like AI. But that said, I think the key thing is to remember that whilst AI gives us great automation and lots of hands off and it does it all for you, I do believe that there will still be a need for people, expert. And what we sort of see as a prediction, certainly by 2026, artisanal kind of expert coders still kind of doing some hand coding to bring into, address very, very specific performance issues that maybe AI hasn't yet conquered or mastered, or even just to take it to the next level. So we see that as a prediction that there will still be a role for expert artisanal, hand coders.
Great. Well, that's encouraging to hear, given the fear that seems to be around about AI taking over all of our jobs. So good to know there's still some need for human expertise in the enterprise. That's great. Okay, thanks very much. That's all we have time for this particular panel. Thank you, Bola. Thank you, James. And thank you, Maria. We're going to be picking up on some of these themes further in other sections in today's presentations. Thank you.
For organisations looking to digitise and transform the way they work, the opinions of employees are paramount. But to effectively guide decision-making, it's important to consider a wide array of contexts. Internally produced surveys contain inherent bias, confirming only what your current team would be happy with. They won't reveal the secrets to attracting top talent, nor how your competitors are using cutting-edge technologies you may not have even considered. If you want to make data-driven decisions that are easy to communicate to other stakeholders, you'll need CCS Insight's Employee Workplace Technology Survey. It's designed to provide a full picture of the ever-evolving demands of the workforces and their sentiments toward new ways of working. By covering a range of regions and industries, the survey grants you access to pertinent insights that you can rely on to make informed decisions. What's more, when you work with CCS Insight, you'll receive unlimited access to our expert analysts, enabling you to get it right every time. Get in touch with the team now to learn more.
Hello and welcome. This next panel discussion focuses on connectivity, cloud and compute. So we're going to be looking at infrastructure, but as it pertains both to the telecoms network and the cloud and hyperscaler environment. I'm joined by James Saunders and Kesterman, my analyst colleagues, and we're going to talk not too deeply about the technology itself, but what it means in terms of commercial models and services within those related spaces. So one of the things I want to start with looking at is that physical infrastructure specifically, and what that means for the mobile network. So when we're looking layer one, we're looking at cell towers specifically. I know this is something you've looked at, Kester, as our lead analyst on telco services. What have you seen in that space? Because there's quite a lot of activity there at the moment, isn't
there?
There
has been. There's been plenty of activity over the last year or two, particularly mobile operators looking to monetize some of their passive infrastructure and sell their towers assets to either strategic investors or tower specialists like Cellnex. So we're seeing those kind of changes in terms of some of the structures of operators. We're also seeing some other operators go a little bit further, for example, Telecom Italia and TDC in Denmark, which are effectively splitting out their network divisions and their service divisions, so kind of NetCo and ServCo approach, which is interesting. And then I guess the more extreme version of that is what we're seeing with the likes of Reliance Jio in India, which is deploying its own software platform, for example. Right. And then we have Rakuten Symphony, of course, which is sharing its Open RAN experiences with other network operators and supporting them in some of their rollouts, almost encroaching, I guess, onto vendor territory a little bit there.
Yeah, it is, and I suppose that's where the lines blur a little bit, and we've seen this a few times previously in the market. Either operators kind of leveraging that experience with new technologies, sometimes that they've helped develop themselves and create new business out of it, but it does kind of step into new business models. I think that's quite interesting. Yep. I'm going to pick you up on Rakuten in just a minute, but with regards to those cell tower companies specifically, they're becoming quite influential in the market. What do you think is going to happen? What do we predict?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Cellnex earlier, actually. We do have a prediction around Cellnex, and I think it's a really interesting one, actually, and that is that by 2026, it adds its own active equipment to at least 1,000 of its European towers.
Right.
So Cellnex, as I'm sure people realise, has built up a big portfolio of towers. It's got tens of thousands of them. What if it partners with Nokia or Ericsson to put some 5G equipment on those towers and effectively take on the role of a neutral provider? It could be a very interesting situation for the industry. And I'd wonder as well how the operators would react to that. I guess on the one hand, they could sense an opportunity to partner with Cellnex to save costs on their network deployment. But also if Cellnex was to become a little bit more ambitious and was even to purchase some spectrum, maybe we'd even see Cellnex emerge as a operator competitor to some of the existing providers. So some interesting dynamics at play there.
Yeah, could be, particularly in terms of how operators respond to that. Could be that they actually see this as the moment where they divest all physical infrastructure or responsibility for running the network, and they just become kind of really a marketing of services provider or some variant on that kind of model, potentially. Okay, interesting. Let's go from physical to virtual now. And you mentioned the Japanese operator Rakuten, which of course has been the poster child for Open RAN. For those who aren't so familiar with Open RAN, this pertains to the radio access network part of the mobile network. It really takes that virtualized RAN movement, that shift from hardware to software, a little bit further by adding in standardized interfaces, doesn't it, that enable one solution provider's equipment to be swapped out for another. Now that's great. It's a real dynamic opportunity, quite disruptive in the market potentially. But there are some challenges to O-RAN, and it has been quite slow to see adoption so far. Firstly, that's around integration of those different solutions. And secondly, it's deployment of Open RAN into a live network that's maybe got those traditional closed interface infrastructures in place. So our prediction is actually around AI, and yes, we have another panel mentioning AI. It really can't go unmentioned in anything at the moment. And that's network-based AI being a driver for O-RAN adoption over the next couple of years. So that's based on the principle that AI is already facilitating network automation. This is a space that really needs that help. And do you see Open RAN getting that boost from AI to help automate, fine-tune integration and deployment scenarios? Kester, what do you think?
Well, we continue to hear a lot about Open RAN from the telecom operators, don't we? But I think it's fair to say that so far deployment's been fairly restricted, and I think there's increasing pessimism at the moment in the industry around the slow rate of progress with Open RAN. Operators have been using AI for some time in their networks to help make them more responsive and more efficient and so on. So who's to say, yeah, why not, use AI to push the motivation of Open RAN, particularly perhaps trying to overcome that challenge of complexity with multiple suppliers. So I can see that coming through, and perhaps that's the boost that Open RAN needs.
Yeah, it does feel like it could really
does need a bit
thrive
of a
from that
kick,
injection.
yeah.
Yes, indeed. So we've talked about network virtualization a little bit, and that has been a major trend. I want to pick up on that, but from the perspective of commercial models. What does virtualization create in terms of opportunities to address different market models? What are we predicting in that sense?
Well, we've got a prediction in this area as well, and it's another interesting one. It's that at least 5 virtual operators launched in Europe with a dedicated focus on small businesses.
Okay.
Now, small business is interesting. I think it's an area that telecom operators have traditionally underserved. It's kind of fallen into this middle ground where you've got the focus on high value enterprise customers on the one hand and obviously mass market consumer, but this small business area has been a bit squeezed over the years. So is there an opportunity perhaps for some virtual providers to come in to target that part of the market, potentially with some affordable connectivity, probably selling services online, and maybe with some customized services or more tailored services suitable for small businesses like collaboration tools or in the area of security or so on.
Okay.
So that's what we have in this.
No, I can see that. We've definitely seen in our enterprise research that kind of preference amongst SMBs for those more easily digestible kind of software-driven models, portals where they can kind of pick and choose online and click and select and things like that. So yeah maybe that could come through. Okay, James, I'm going to bring you in here. So you lead a lot of our research into cloud models. Talk to us a little bit about how the landscape's changing and perhaps, you know, different infrastructure models within the cloud space and different enterprise strategies with regards to cloud are impacting this space and maybe giving opportunities to new players. How are you seeing it?
Certainly. So the reality of enterprise IT is and continues to be hybrid cloud.
Okay.
When you see our survey results, there is a definite preference for multiple cloud providers in the enterprise IT landscape. The orthodoxy behind that has typically been some combination of AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. And typically workloads there are managed by, you know, some combination of VMware, some combination of Red Hat, and some combination of, you know, maybe Bare Kubernetes, depending on how ambitious you want to be with things.
Sure.
And while the virtual layer is probably about equal, I suspect that there's a lot of opportunity for alternative cloud platforms to come in over the next few years.
Okay, right.
Part of that is going to be, there's always been this idea of having a regional cloud. That's been there for about as long as any of the cloud platform operators have been there. And that does limit you a little bit to the region that you're trying to play in. They don't really get a lot of mass market outside of the region they're targeting. Where the real opportunity probably is going to be in really the cloud native and developer focused clouds. When you look at cloud native, cloud's been around for 20 years, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of companies that are trying to take an adjacency and build that out to being a full-scale cloud platform. Akamai is one of the most interesting of these because they, you know, started out as a content delivery network.
Right.
And then they bought Linode a few years ago to really get that, not just developer, but the experience of running virtual machines in a cloud platform. And they're taking that and really leaning into their heritage as a content delivery network to really focus on cloud native deployment, Kubernetes, and the physical point of presence near customers. Because when you have an enterprise workload that's really latency sensitive, you really want that point of presence, and they've got thousands around the world. The other side of this coin is going to be a lot of things like DigitalOcean, which has for a long time been really the developer-focused cloud. DigitalOcean's just bought a company to deal with generative AI.
Okay.
And with the rise of generative AI, the customization of those models and the development of new models, that's really going to be an interesting story for them as they see that route to market with the growth of that over the next few years.
Okay.
The dark horse in this story is going to be Vultr, which is a really interesting small cloud platform. They've never taken venture capital money, but they're very scrappy and they are really hungry for a slice of that market.
Sounds interesting. It's certainly a new one on me. So it sounds like there's quite a lot of dynamism there, and I think with that you're always going to see new opportunities for dynamic shifts in terms of services, potentially in pricing. We actually do have a prediction around pricing for edge services, and that is that over the next couple of years there's a pretty radical readjustment of pricing for edge services. Is that something that you would see or that you can see taking place?
I would expect that over the next few years. And everyone wants to say that, you know, it's still early days for cloud. It's been around for 20 years. It's not early days for cloud. It's early days for edge. It's early days for IoT. As the cloud platforms are getting more comfortable with getting outside of their own data centers, with helping their customers, helping their enterprise customers really deal with the IoT deployments they have for their physical sites, for edge deployments as those situations arise. The pricing for that is really decently generous. And that's kind of a taste test for enterprises to, you know, deploy with this cloud platform and then scale up from there. And as that scaling starts to happen, there's going to have to be a reckoning about what the margin is, what the acceptable margin is for those companies. And I suspect over the next few years, you'll see the cost of the edge and IoT services from the cloud platforms increase, both as a reflection of the cost that they have to operate that business and to increase their margins.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I could see that. It's interesting because a lot of those similar kind of edge and cloud dynamics are kind of playing out in the telco network space within that platform as well. And I think one of the things that we're predicting is that shift towards cloud native networks is actually going to be a much more widely available and measured metric, like a KPI really, that we're going to see actually put into quarterly operator financial reports. So if you like, that percentage of the total network that is now cloud native, because that's a measurement of a technology strategy evolving quarter by quarter, year on year. And I think once investors start understanding that cloud native platform is not only a part of the efficiency of the operator, but a cost efficiency in the operator, that's when they're going to start wanting to track that. Do you agree, Kersty? Is that something you
I agree. I think it's a great prediction. I can see it coming true. We know operators are increasingly looking to increase the share of their network within the cloud. And I can imagine that would be a really useful metric, for example, for equity analysts to benchmark and progress how operators are moving forward. And of course, you know, it comes against the backdrop of operators such as Dish Network in the US, which has entrusted AWS, Amazon Web Services, to run its entire Open RAN-based 5G network in the States. So yeah, good prediction, and I can definitely see that one happening.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kester. Thanks, James. That's all we have for this discussion, but that theme of the intersection between the network, the cloud and the edge is definitely something we're going to be picking up in following segments. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Richard. Some great perspectives there on the future of connectivity and compute. So in keeping with that theme of connectivity, I am delighted to say that we have today John Smee, Senior Vice President of Engineering and Head of Wireless Research at Qualcomm. So John, welcome. We'll be talking today about what comes next for 5G, and obviously the follow-on subject there is, of course, what comes with 6G, and the role of global standards and why that global standard setting process is important to the role of innovation and delivering those technologies. So a warm welcome, as I say, John, to Predictions 2024 and beyond.
Thank you.
So if maybe we get started with that standards process. It feels like a good place to start as any. Qualcomm has obviously had a long history and has been at the forefront of that standards process for some time. Could you perhaps just outline for us all, to start with, why is that standards process so important to innovation?
When we look at global standards, the reason it's important, the single word is scale. So it's about the fact that you can have this technology, deep innovation, but the question is, how do you cost effectively bring it to all of these different global markets? And that's the role of standards. In some sense, your phone, back in the days of early flip phones, you could get off the airplane, it's going to work anywhere. Well, today, as we look at the spread of 5G, whether it's connecting factories or enhanced mobile broadband, there's a lot of different technical evolution where the global standards enable that interoperability between networks and devices, different types of equipment. And so it's really about that alignment technically as people adhere to the standard to enable that interoperability. And that's really the global aspect to it, where the world comes together in these foundational alignment about what the biggest priorities are to help move the ecosystem forward.
So the big role really about standards is, as you say, is about scale and bringing the ecosystem together. So if we think about the various Gs that we've seen progress over the years, we've gone from 2G, 3G, 4G, now 5G, and we'll talk about 6G later. Would we have seen that same speed of advancement, do you think, without the standards process?
I don't think so. I think the standards process really is what enabled that fundamental investment. And it's also interesting too, when we look at, this decade of cadence. If we look at the Gs and we look back to, 3G in 2000 and 4G in 2010, and then 5G in 2020, it's this perspective that there's an accumulation of fundamental research ideas every 10 years. And that's what sets the stage for that new generation. And so that scale, when we look at the surface area of 5G, the number of technologies that leverage connectivity, the role of compute and connectivity being so much more intertwined even right now. And so that's that part of that scale is what enables that technical transformation. And then even the transitions between the generations are about enabling that forward compatible investment. So you're leveraging the assets you've already deployed, but bringing in that new functionality that comes with the next generation.
Okay, so if we think about it in the context of 5G then, obviously when at the very start of that 5G standards creation process, that there was a real concern about potential for fragmentation. So did the standards process work as it should, do you think, in that case when it comes to 5G?
Yeah, the 5G standardization process did indeed work as intended. It was that point of making sure there's that global alignment on what are the technologies, making sure we could deliver, huge amounts of capacity, coverage, the benefits of 5G, bringing in new bands like millimeter wave. And that was all part of that 3GPP 5G standardization effort. And what's interesting is that time frame, even though 5G got deployed in 2019, 2020, the reality is it was much earlier, 2015, 16, 17, that there was already significant global engagement on that, hey, when and how should we standardize this? Taking these technologies to that 3GPP standards body, and then ensuring that 5G could grow on top of that 4G LTE success.
So by the sounds of it, it was the speed with which the ecosystem really got on board with 5G and embraced the standard was consistent with your expectations from the early days, kind of going back to the 2017 era.
It was, and it's something too where, in some sense, the transition from 4G to 5G actually happened faster than the transition from 3G to 4G. And I think that also underscores the reality of the technology itself. So the foundations that are incorporated into cellular technology are themselves advancing. They're leveraging the latest cloud-based architectures, new types of virtualization, distributed compute. There's a lot of different technologies from the radio side to the compute side to the cloud side. And those things come together to enable 5G to move forward faster. So when we look at that kind of transition from 4G into 5G, it was that coming together of the technology side, the innovation side, with that global alignment and scale. And that's one of the things that enabled then that transition to happen globally and to indeed happen faster than the prior generations.
So if we think to 6G then, and obviously that transition, would your expectation be that would be shorter again, and that that process is really being refined with each generational shift?
Well, when I look to 6G, we're definitely already aligning as an industry targeting 2030 commercialization. So obviously we need a standardization to complete in advance of that, so we can have those super high performing, low power integrated circuits. We can have the base stations and the RAN architectures ready to go. And so it is those things when we look at 6G that work, putting together the technology research vectors, the big ideas, how are they being kind of brought together to enable that 2030 deployment. So even though, as we're looking right now in 2023, as we look forward to the next 5 years, there's already a lot of alignment saying, hey, how do we make sure we can continue merging the physical, digital, virtual worlds? How do we make sure that cellular is delivering new value for connectivity, coverage, capacity, but at the same time, taking us into new dimensions when we look at integrated communications, positioning, sensing. The real value of the network, the value of connected compute devices, all of that is going, higher, and it's really something that's leveraging this digital transformation. So as we look forward to 6G, we absolutely expect that continued growing momentum, because the reality is any computer that's not connected, and whether it's a laptop, a tablet, a cell phone, or even a huge numbers of sensors, all of those devices rely on connectivity now. And so as we project towards 6G in 2030, we do absolutely expect that surface area of the 6G cellular ecosystem to be even larger than it is today.
So when it comes to the geopolitical climate then, is there any risk that you see to the scale and the ecosystem around mobile technologies that poses, particularly when it comes to this transition to 6G?
I would say there always is that risk of fragmentation, that risk of people moving away from that global overall standard. Obviously, we as a technology leader, we're really focused on helping maintain that cohesion and maintain that global perspective and the importance of these international standards. So there always is that risk of fragmentation. At the same time, I do feel that there's a recognition that all of society benefits when we leverage the scale, whether we're connecting more people, schools, hospitals, factories, whatever country that's happening in, we benefit when there's that scale from the global ecosystem.
And if obviously we're talking a lot about 6G here, but we mustn't forget that there's still a lot of life left in that roadmap for 5G. But what can we expect? What would you really point to in terms of that next phase for 5G and 5G Advanced?
Well, that's a good way to put it, because in some sense, we can view this decade of innovation, each generation about 10 years long. And so we're basically finished the first 5 years of 5G standardization, and now we're entering that next 5 years, and that's 5G Advanced. So in 3GPP, that's corresponding to releases 18, 19, and 20, building on the foundations from releases 15, 16, 17. So in some sense, we are absolutely taking that step from 5G into 5G Advanced right now. That's undergoing standardization, and there's still a healthy 5 years of 5G evolution in front of us. And that's really opening up interesting new applications, whether it's taking 5G into more IoT applications, continuing to focus on foundational improvements to the core KPIs of coverage, mobility, capacity, but really helping 5G address new vertical markets, whether it's satellite communications or how 5G continues to have more and more automotive applications, augmented virtual reality applications. So there's a lot of focus on making sure then that those original investments in 5G open up new markets as part of 5G Advanced.
And if we think about 2023, an absolutely inescapable trend has been AI, huge amount of hype. Could you touch a little bit on what that means for wireless, what we can expect, both in terms of 5G and with regards to the roadmap for 6G as well?
Yeah, AI is such a foundational technology, and you're absolutely right that right now, there's new applications opening up, that ability to leverage data, to be able to change how things are adapted to become more predictive. So fundamentally, even as part of 5G Advanced, we're incorporating AI into new mechanisms within the standard itself. So you can always have a base station getting smarter, you can have a device getting smarter with AI, but we can also bring that into the standard itself, where that interaction between the network and device is part of that standard's leveraging that artificial intelligence and machine learning, changing how we do interaction and feedback between the network and the devices. So if we look towards 6G, it's going to be a more AI native design, because we have a clean sheet of paper with each new generation. That's one of the reasons the generations exist. It's that chance to combine revolutionary ideas and new approaches, building on top of the evolutionary work that's already been ongoing. So that combination of revolution plus evolution means AI is going to happen differently in 6G than it's going to happen in 5G Advanced. But fundamentally, it's touching every element, because every device that's being connected has more compute capability, has more AI built into it. And that's the interesting thing when we look at the cloud side of AI, the device side of AI, and these hybrid AI applications where things are working together, whether it's because of privacy or latency or power consumption or scale. there's a lot of AI that's actually happening within the device, and that needs to leverage communication to and from the cloud. So it's a really exciting time right now on that intersection of 5G and AI, and as we're looking towards designing new 6G AI approaches.
So by the sounds of it then, when it comes to 6G, we should think about AI being native to, obviously, the cloud. It will be native to the network and native to the device.
That's absolutely right. And it's something that's being incorporated similar to the cloud. Like cloud architectures have existed for a while, and 5G itself incorporated some of these cloud-centric processing themes. But at the same time, 6G is going to be more cloud native. It's going to be more AI native. And so that's the interesting thing, is we've learned a lot already on how AI and wireless intersect, and we can use that together to make 6G even better.
So that's probably a good point then, John. Before we conclude, do you have a prediction for us? Obviously, this is predictions 2024 and beyond. Given some of those themes that we've talked around AI becoming native, and the network itself, and the roadmap for 5G Advanced and 6G, anything that you would throw out there by way of prediction for the coming years?
I guess when I look at that future in the next 5 years, one of the core themes that I think is going to continue growing, continue intersecting in new ways, is that merging of the physical, digital, and virtual worlds. So whether it's augmented virtual reality, making people more productive, making a teacher more productive, enabling a student to access information, or revolutionizing the way healthcare gets incorporated into healthy habits and at the same time, better care within the hospital environment. So there's a huge amount of information that's being created. And in my view, that merging of the physical, digital, and virtual worlds is going to keep opening up many new interesting opportunities. And it's part of that 5G evolution into 6G, but it's really more fundamentally changing how and why we interact with devices and the value that gets created. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about in terms of these future predictions.
That's wonderful. You've summed up predictions 2024 and beyond perfectly. I think it's a really good reflection of a number of the topics that we're covering and how all those things come together and will transform experiences in the years to come. So, John, thank you ever so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it and greatly appreciate your insights. I will now hand to Luke for insight on the trends taking shape with regards to private mobile networks. Over to you, Luke.
Every day, Qualcomm is transforming the way we work, live, and communicate, pushing the limits of technologies like artificial intelligence to help us stay more intelligently connected. Over the last 10 years, Qualcomm has been advancing on-device AI, recreating legendary cinematic effects from professional-grade lenses. For movie-quality images that will blow you away.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap.
Keeping up with these quickly evolving technologies can seem daunting, but that's the power of AI. You don't need to understand it. It understands you. Welcome to the edge of possible.
So far today, we've explored technology trends in enterprise and infrastructure. We've seen how digital transformation is reshaping the workplace and employee skill sets. So now let's consider the impact of emerging technology on industry and operations. Gigantic leaps in data processing and analytics, edge computing, cloud capabilities, and of course AI are creating enormous opportunities for businesses and organizations. But at the intersection of all this remains a critical need: connectivity. The solutions we build for tomorrow's connectivity challenges will provide the platform for these other technologies to flourish. This is precisely where private mobile networks can change the game. A private mobile network, in this context, embodies a dedicated cellular infrastructure meticulously tailored for an organization's exclusive use, as opposed to a public network accessible to all. Privatized networks will lie at the heart of many enterprise IT and digital transformation projects, and telecom infrastructure and suppliers will play an important role in bringing this about. The sheer potency of 5G and the future promise of 6G manifest in their super-fast speeds, capacity and throughput, fundamental ingredients for the next wave of industrial machines and data. Right now, the private mobile network market remains relatively modest, with 4,723 networks globally, powering around 4 million connections. However, the pulse is quickening. According to our Pulse tracking service, we've seen a staggering 64% surge in deployments in the first quarter of 2023 alone, which translated to a remarkable $2.5 billion last year for infrastructure investments. Yet these numbers barely scratch the surface of potential applications. In our Spotlight report, now available to clients, we provide analysis on the number of sites that could benefit from connectivity solutions, such as mining facilities, factories, energy grids, schools, smart buildings, bustling venues, ports and logistics hubs, totaling 3.5 million sites. By 2027, we forecast dedicated private networks will grow to just a fraction of this, rising at 57% compound annual growth rate. But over the next couple of decades, we expect the growing presence of private mobile networks around the world to begin to get close to this number. Still, there remain some challenges for most businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, such as the initial deployment costs, which loom substantial in comparison with current solutions such as Wi-Fi. Amid this backdrop, the tantalizing prospect of true 5G, complete with standalone architecture, emerges, which facilitates the slicing and dicing of public networks while sharing core elements, creating a hybrid or virtual network slicing solution. This potential provides the necessary connectivity, security, and latency of private 5G, but keeps the lower cost and flexibility of a public network. While the dedicated private mobile network market is poised for substantial expansion, our prediction is that the combination of hybrid public and private 5G through network slicing emerges as the prominent path forward, shaping the narrative of technology's evolution by 2030, thanks to the sheer volume of small and medium enterprises able to benefit from these solutions, all delivered by mobile operators. There are many kind of industries that will benefit from private 5G. Today, public safety systems and natural resource extraction sites make up the majority of connectivity sites according to our data, such as connecting AT&T's FirstNet nationwide system in the US and the many mine and oil and gas sites where private network connectivity can be provided both underground and offshore. According to our survey into service providers' 5G strategies, 80% of applications are just looking for campus-wide or mobile connectivity. But there are some industries in which private 5G connectivity enables new and previously unobtainable uses, which are just starting to take shape. For example, on a construction site in Saudi Arabia, 5G is being used for worker health and safety, infantry for building materials, monitoring temperature and humidity, adjusting 3D architectural plans, and even taking infrared measurements. A site-wide private network, once deployed, can be a platform for a range of use cases to proliferate. Agriculture is another industry that could potentially be buoyed by the advancement of 5G connectivity. The increased adoption of precision agriculture technologies, such as self-steering machinery, hyperlocal monitoring, and agricultural drones, is dependent on a variety of connectivity options to provide the needed coverage and data speeds in rural areas. A 2020 survey by the National Farmers Union in the UK highlighted 96% of farmers consider a reliable mobile signal to be important for their business, but only 21% said they had reliable outdoor signal in all locations, and 31% said speeds were not sufficient for their business. Although the cost and complexity of dedicated networks are unlikely to be an accessible solution for most farmers, the combination of hybrid public and private 5G provide the benefit of private networks at a more accessible cost. This leads to our prediction that precision agriculture will be bolstered by hybrid private 5G solutions by 2030 and usher in a new era of productivity and innovation in agricultural practices. But who are the suppliers involved in this complex ecosystem, and how are commercial models evolving? My colleague Richard Webb is going to share some insight.
Thanks, Luke. So, according to our market tracking, there are currently more than 50 companies involved in the supply of equipment, solutions and services for private mobile networks, and the list is growing. This makes for a complex and potentially confusing value chain for enterprises. For example, a solution could potentially involve a mobile operator, a cloud services provider, a radio access network equipment supplier, a core network software provider, and a systems integrator. And that's before we get to devices or start integrating the private mobile network with the enterprise IT network. So we're seeing a great deal of partnering and positioning within this ecosystem to encourage engagement with a broad range of potential customers, many of whom have widely differing needs. Because every customer and deployment scenario is different, creating solutions can be resource intensive, with very few templates or clear blueprints for success at this early market stage. To address this complexity, product portfolios are starting to evolve, with more downscaled and pre-integrated solutions now available from multiple suppliers to simplify adoption and onboarding. Also, commercial models are evolving. For example, enterprises are showing an inclination towards network as a service models, which offer more digestible setup costs, but can still scale up as usage grows and more devices and applications are added. Over time, this will evolve the private mobile market from what's currently a relatively small number of mostly larger scale projects to a market characterized by larger numbers of small to mid-sized projects. As more organizations digitally transform and become increasingly data-driven, they will use private 5G for a broader range of critical applications, from IoT to CCTV to smart manufacturing, training, and health and safety. This will accelerate as 5G Advanced is introduced and its reduced capability function drives mass-scale IoT over 5G as a precursor to the 6G era. Private mobile, smart industry, and other digital capabilities will have increasingly powerful synergies, leading us to make the following prediction. By 2030, the first 6G-powered massive twin city is announced. Massive twinning extends the digital twin concept beyond production and manufacturing applications to a wider world, leading to a full digital representation of whole environments. By capturing and modeling the physical world with sufficient fidelity, massive twinning could support the management of transportation, logistics, entertainment, social interactions, digital health, and public safety, offering unprecedented experiences and control. Enabled by 6G, almost every aspect of this trailblazing city is digitally represented. So the long-term future is exciting, though our analysis of the total addressable market suggests that private mobile adoption is still in a comparatively early phase, characterized by diversity and fragmentation. We believe the critical mass of the market is going to arrive in the 2025 to 2026 timeframe, driven increasingly by 5G for its high capacity, low latency, and seamless ability, though a lot depends still on the ecosystem of devices. Overall, much still to play for. We'll continue watching the evolution of this market closely, but for now, that's all from Luke and myself. Now, back to Simon for a quick recap of today's content.
That brings us to the end of the agenda looking at collaborative convergence. Today you've heard some bold predictions from our enterprise and network infrastructure teams, including, as you've just heard, precision agriculture being bolstered by hybrid 5G solutions by 2030, AI supporting the adoption of Open RAN, recessions pushing workloads to premises through 2024, and the first 6G powered massive twin city by 2030. The knowledge and insights we've shared with you today rely on the team's continuous research and projects, which include the Senior Leadership IT Investment Survey, Employee Workplace Technology Survey, IT Infrastructure and App Delivery Survey, and our tracking of the worldwide private mobile networks market. I hope you've enjoyed today's agenda. Thank you for tuning in. I'd like now to hand over to Jeff to bring Predictions 2024 and beyond to a close.
So that's it for Predictions 2024 and beyond. Covering the ground adequately is something that we think carefully about every year, but this year was a particular challenge. We're witnessing a huge amount of change, and with it comes uncertainty. Our hope is that we manage to unpack what that's likely to mean for the technology industry at large, as well as specific market participants. We also felt it was important to consider the elements that are needed to deliver that change. In the same way that our industry doesn't stand still, predictions isn't a process with a start and a finish. It's a central part of our research. And so although this is the end of this year's event, we look forward to continuing the conversation with you all. In that vein, please look out for the booklet containing all of our predictions for the years to come, and do share your feedback on the event so we can continue to adapt it accordingly. Needless to say, if you have questions on any of the content, please don't hesitate to get in touch. A big thank you to all of you who tuned in, as well as our sponsors. A lot of work goes into predictions, so a final thank you to our film crew and everyone at CCS Insight for delivering on what has become a very big and very rewarding team effort. We've got regular webinars taking place on different topics every month, so look out for those on our website, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.